Hello, everybody. This is Bernie Gallerani bringing you another episode of Success is Not Convenient. And one of the best things about the job that I get to do and film these podcasts for all of you who listen is I get to interview really great entrepreneurs, people that either I've known and I've heard great stories about and have had a chance to interview them, or people that I personally know, people that I've either worked with in the past or I've had a chance to just get to know as somebody who had nothing to somebody who now has a lot. And today I have a great guest, somebody that's not only just a great entrepreneur and a great thinker of out-of-the-box thoughts, but just a really good friend for many, many years. And so I want to introduce and thank you, Jon, for joining us, Jon Sontag, who now lives in, you're in Charleston, correct?
Out of Charleston, yes, sir.
Wow, dude, that's awesome. And of course, I've been to your great city, and what a beautiful place. And so just to give everybody who's watching this, Jon, a little recap, I met you, I'm guessing 15 years ago or longer, maybe 17,
2008 or 9.
2008 or 9. Wow. Okay. So, wow, we're getting up there, Jon. And so here's what's really fun for all the people that are watching this interview with Jon. I think I met you when you were 23 or 4, potentially.
Yeah, right in there, 22 or 23.
You just got out of college, right?
Yep.
Yeah. And so Jon is, and Jon, here's what's cool. In many of the podcasts that I've done, I always tell the story, and I've probably mentioned this 4 or 5 different times, Jon, of the guy who I worked with who brought me this thought and this idea and this dream, and that you shared it with me, and that I basically shot it down, wasn't very encouraging. And when I tell these stories, Jon, to people, I tell your story about how you brought me this idea. And in the podcasts that I've done in the past, Jon, I always try to tell people, don't let somebody else influence your dream. Don't let somebody else shoot down your idea because the dream wasn't given to them. And yet I was the person who did that. And so I've learned a lot about your experience. So I want to thank you for giving me a lot of contents in my podcasts to say, don't let anybody steal your joy from you. Because it doesn't matter what I ever think about anybody's ideas. It only matters what they think. So let's dig into it, because Jon Sontag is the guy who I've referenced in many of my podcasts about I was negative on an idea and it was Jon's idea. And here he was, this young 20-something-year-old kid. Probably, I would guess, I was a mentor to you at that particular time. You trusted me and I shot you down on the idea. So, but guess what? It's all good because you became a multimillionaire from the idea I told you wouldn't work. and that's why you're here today. So let's get started. So you had this idea. Let's start from the very beginning. You graduated college. From what college were you attending?
University of South Carolina, graduated in 2008. I had a job. I was recruited by Macy's to run their beauty.com. 6 months before I graduated. But I was a good student. I worked hard. I loved all my professors and, had a great social life, but Nashville was very important to me. And meeting you actually changed my life, and the people that we were plugged into.
Mm-hmm.
So, I was managing full-time, hundreds of employees, and working, 40, 50 hours a week at Macy's, and had met you through a mutual friend of ours. And I've always was in real estate. I had my real estate license in college, but I never was taught how to sell or what to do. And so I actually looked it up the other day when you had called, and I was like, golly. But it was in December of 2009 when I had interviewed with you, and you were starting paying me $8 an hour to prospect. And I was looking back in my notes because I keep all the important stuff. But like back then when I was hired, I was making like 50 contacts a day. And that's insane. 50 to 75 talking to humans about buying or selling real estate is disgusting amount of work. So there was this like little, intense work ethic that I've really always have had, but also coming into the office and hearing you make the calls and seeing you know, your 30 listings versus my 4, just things that really kept me knowing that I have a lot of room to improve.
Yeah.
And, but that was our introduction. And, when I started closing homes and doing it on my own, it was a process. And I was extremely frightened, Bernie. You have to get through that reluctance, that fear of failure, because you have to let it go. And you're hard to follow in your footsteps. I mean, let me tell you guys, whoever has worked with Bernie, hey, you better bring it, and you better. That's on you. You better bring it. And so, I think having you as a mentor, and still do, was so important to me, because I think I closed like 4 homes in a month, 1 month, and I made like 75% of my salary. And I was like, this is crazy. And I'm thinking to myself, surely this is the way out. Or, because I realized that. And let me tell you this, Macy's was, I'm incredibly thankful for that opportunity. And I'm still in touch with a lot of mentors that I worked for and that I worked with. My old supervisor just called me the other day, Derek Barrett. Anyway, big things that I learned there. So I'm incredibly grateful for that opportunity, but I just knew that I wasn't going to be the CEO in 3 years. That wasn't exciting to me.
Right.
What's exciting is making the shots, what you all think about in your head when you go into business school and management. You want to run the thing, hopefully. Hopefully that's kind of one of your goals. And when I was selling real estate on the side and basically making my, salary on the side, committing to 20 hours a week at the office,
Yeah.
My mind changed. That was it.
Well,
And
what's
so
interesting is,
real estate was the reason why I became an entrepreneur.
well, it's fun too, right? Because you had a really good job with Macy's, as you came into management, leading a bunch of people at the distribution center here in Nashville, and you were just a hard worker, right? I mean, I might have paid you a pittance of an hourly wage, but you could certainly see that the value was in sales, right? And so, just for contents for people who are listening, and Jon came to me. I think we were working together 6 months or a year, and he came to me and he said, "Hey, I had this amazing dream, and this is what I want to do, and I want to build this company." And I shot it down. And thank God you didn't listen to me, because you went and pursued it. So let's talk a little bit about your dream, right? Because you created a really great business, Jon, that I would say, if anything, gave you a platform to launch yourself into other opportunities. Would you agree with that?
Like 1,000%.
Yeah. So you created this business idea. What I'm really intrigued with, though, and I would love it if you could share a little bit of the story that you remember. You went back to Charleston and you pitched this idea to a couple of people or some friends of yours, because you needed some seed money, right? Some backup money to get it off the ground. Talk about that challenge. You had a good job. You're a smart guy. You're a college graduate. You got your grandparents obviously were really successful people, because I remember those conversations that you and I had about them. But yet at the same time, you're still entrepreneurial. So you've got a great job, but yet you still took a risk to start a business. So let's talk about those challenges. What was your biggest obstacles trying to get that thing off the ground? And then we'll go into a little bit of what the business is here in a minute, but let's talk a little bit about where your mental struggles were.
I think that's a really good point, because Bernie, and I brought these just to show everybody, whoever's listening, so they could understand and humanize it. But we, started really investing in self coaching, if you recall, like all this. I have my life is recorded since December of 2009, Bernie. I had just met you like the 2 days before, and I got clarity. I wasn't feeling confident. I wasn't comfortable with where I was in life. I felt less than, and kind of like this depression that you feel like is not real, but it actually weighed on me, and I didn't have any clue why I would feel like I'm not worthy of talking to anybody I want, or whatever, I'm not worthy, whatever that was in my head. So you have all these journals, and I journaled religiously and I read a lot. And so I finally was building up this kind of capacity to believe in myself to do something. And so you can see over the years, but like I remember like marking down, like getting clarity. So I came up with, it was called Bag with Tag. My last name Sontag on 6/9/2011. Bernie, we were knee deep. I was still doing Macy's. I was knee deep selling real estate. But boom, I spilled trash in a brand new Lexus RX 350. Remember that nice one I got? That was
Yeah.
like my dream car.
Yeah.
And like, I always liked your cars. I always thought you drove cool cars. So I wanted a cool car. So I finally bought it. But the first day I spilled trash in it. I lived in this MMA community, and now I'm in multifamily, so I know all those guys down off of like Indian Lake Boulevard. Is that what
Yeah.
it's called?
Yeah.
So it was brand new back then, and I spilled trash in a brand new car. And I was like, I pay so much money to live here. Someone should take my trash to the compactor because it would like go off of 65.
Is that because you had to haul it from your apartment to your trash can? Is that
Yeah,
why?
and I put it in my back. So I was like, screw this. Somebody should do this for me. I lived on the 3rd floor, and I was tired of the trash flying off and forgetting I had a trash on top of my car, moving after that. So that night, I started the freaking company. I bought a domain. I read enough books that were like, all the people, they just have these great ideas. They just don't do anything. So I literally was on GoDaddy.com that night and went, Bag with Tag. And, it evolved into, Tide Valet, which was we were all over, 10 states, all over the East and Southern states. But that's when it started. No one had heard of it. It was not even a thing. It was not a thing. So that's when it all happened. And so after that, I remember I didn't get any sleep that night. I was so excited. I had got this beautiful idea, and I was like, I've made it. Like I'm the man.
I made it.
I made it.
I'm rich. I'm just waiting for everybody.
In my head, I remember I didn't get any sleep, and it wasn't like it was so. I've really made it. Like I have a great idea, and I told it to everybody. It was a flop. I told it to Macy's. In fact, let me tell you about Macy's. I don't know. So that was in 11. So I'm starting ferociously to get this started. I want this dream to happen. And I remember telling Macy's, I'm about to head to Charleston. And I go, guys, and I'm like, not the sharpest guy. I mean, let's just face it. But I remember telling my directors and VPs at Macy's that, hey, I'm giving you my month notice. I'm going to start this trash company. They're like, that silly one, you talked to us like a month ago.
I wasn't the only one that knocked.
Oh, you were far from the only. My mom almost disowned me. She was so pissed. She's not anymore, but I love my mother. But seriously, and I gave them a month notice in writing. I was like, hey guys, I was like a week before me leaving. I said, where the hell is my replacement? And they're like, Jon, we didn't know you were serious. I said, I gave you a written notice and I signed it like to HR. Like, what do you mean? They're like, we just thought you were joking around. I'm like, I got going to Charleston to start this company. So that was basically what happened. But I started this company and I transferred my real estate license, if you recall, because I was like, now Bernie, at this time we've probably spent about 2 years together, and I know. And I enjoyed. I'd rather spend time with you in your office than I would with Macy's. There's no offense, and I love my employees. I love them so much, and I love most of my managers. I also did get a bad boss that I was like I was like, nah, that's not happening. So I was even more motivated to fix my condition. Also wrote down how I want to live my life. So all this writing and all this goal setting from my life is recorded and planned out from December 2009 to yesterday morning. Okay. I'm still doing this because it works.
Yeah, it does.
And you guys need to understand that you can literally create your own future in advance just by writing it down. Like, please understand how profound that is. Just write it down and focus on it.
But it's interesting though. You wrote it down and you had a vision. You were clearly excited. A lot of people, including yours truly, emotionally disregarded your enthusiasm and excitement towards your business idea. And yet, from the seat I sit in, you can correct me if I'm wrong, you started a whole industry across the country because once you started it, then other companies took it. And for those that don't really know what John's talking about, is he created the idea where there's trash pickup at these high-end apartment complexes. So when you put your bag out in front of your apartment complex and then a service comes by and picks it up, this is the guy that created the concept behind that idea. So let's go back 15, 18 years ago, whatever it was, when you came to me with this idea and it didn't exist, you're like, okay, that's kind of weird, right? You just take your garbage to the trash can. But you actually pulled it off. And that's the cool part about why I wanted to have you on there because I'm a believer. Don't let anybody steal your joy or your dream. You just go after it regardless who buys into it. And you're a great example, John. And as I've said, I've mentioned you on many of my podcasts where you're a guy who had nothing but naysayers, as you just said, people that thought, oh, I don't think you're serious about leaving John to go start a trash company. I mean, that sounds just totally ridiculous. But yet you didn't care. So you then go pitch this to your people in Charleston, and
Yeah.
did you have some pushback with investors? Share with me a little bit of that journey of how difficult that was to get, because you had to borrow some money to get some partners, right, in order to launch this business.
Yeah, I do. Let me tell you, I had that kind of, yep. So I have it dated too, because these things are so important to me too, because I love this country. I love the United States. I want to see people be the best version of themselves. And so I'm now 6 months home. I'm about 4 months home at this point in time, and I need capital. And there is nobody on earth that is going to lend me capital on this business idea that doesn't exist. Like you said, it's, it was like nothing. So I'm hanging out with one of my fraternity brothers, and he said, why don't you talk to, his name is Adam Monroe. You guys need to understand, he is amazing, and he's a hell of a leader, but he's the co-founder of Middle Street Partners, who are still my partners to this day. And I met Adam when I was 18 years old. In fact, he was the reason why I was a Sigma Chi. Everyone loves Adam, but he's extremely sharp. And I met with him. So that was June 11th, when I came up with Bag with Tag. And on 6/27, that's a year, 12 months later, less than 12 months, I had a meeting with Adam Monroe down the street from my house, right where I live now. And he said, John, that sounds like a great idea. I said, what? I said, oh, yeah, it is. And he said, I'm gonna give you the money. We're gonna do it. I said, what? And
Even you couldn't
so a
believe
year
it.
later, I said, what?
Even you were shocked.
I was like, Jesus, what did you say? And he's like, yeah, we're going to do it. I think I can help you. Because what he did was he reported directly to the CEO of Greystar, which is the #1 property management development company in the world. And they're headquartered here. And so these are all my friends now. And so, but he went on his own to start Middle Street Partners with Ryan Knapp, who leads the acquisition side, but Adam and Ryan are the co-founders. And Middle Street, Sullivan's Island, that's my morning run, right? Right down the street. And I went through about 4 or 5 months of the most grueling business plan I could ever imagine. And edit after edit after edit, must have been 12 times. And
Is
then
that because they were asking you to change
and
the edit
different things
because
to
they
think
weren't
about.
happy with what you were presenting up front originally, or
Right.
or they made you think that anyway?
That's what they did. They made me think that. Adam Monroe is the sharpest human I've ever met. And he wouldn't want me saying this, but he is. And then at the end of it, he's just like, I just wanted to make sure that you would do all that. He's like, oh, he's going to give you the money anyway. He's like, I was just going to make sure you're going to do that work.
What were you think when he had you go back and rebuild? Because I remember you telling me the story, and you would present the plan to him, and then he would just say, hey, listen, you got to retool that, you got to change that, you got to think differently. And then you kept bringing new ones to him and new ones to him, and he kept telling you the same thing. What was going on inside of your head when he was asking you that?
Oh, well, at this point, I was happy to have Adam on the team. Essentially, I was like, man, he believes in me, but the thing was not funded and we weren't a thing. So, but in retrospect, it made me so much sharper on the little things, on the bigger things. And he wanted to see how big I was going to be thinking into this. How committed is this man to this idea that basically wasn't existing back then, but with his ends and his connections. Also, he taught me like get money strategically. He said, John, you don't want a check from people that sell diamonds. You don't want a check. You want a check from people that can give you a strategic advantage, that own apartment communities that are class A. Why would you ask some guy that, has a doctor's office?
That makes sense, because if you're getting money or understanding that side of the world, then they're going to use the service as they're investing in it, because not only do they have an investment in it as an ownership or partnership, they also have usage for that product, which was a built-in win-win. Because I think what you were doing, and correct me if I'm wrong, when you went and pitched this to the management team for these apartment complexes or the ownership groups or whatever it is that you were talking to, you had to actually pitch where it's a service for your renters, for your clients, for your people that are renting your product. But number two, it was also a revenue source for those apartment buildings, correct?
Yeah, that was key. Once we figured out how this worked, how to sell it, how to sell the service. So yes, I charged this fee, but also what I did, because guess what? Only 10% of your community uses your amenities, but over 95% of your renters are going to use valet trash. They're not going to not use it. They could say they're not, but they use it because it's nice. And no one likes to take out the trash. Nobody. So what we did is we phased in the revenue period to mirror their renewal period of about 50% to 60% a year. So we had a 12-month phase-in period. The average community size is 270 units, right? So we'd phase that in over, and if they were a new development, I gave them about 15-month phase-in period. But if they were stabilized, which means like fully leased, like 92, 93% is fully leased, I give them that 12-month phase-in period. We're losing money, right? Because I'm servicing the whole community at that time.
Yes.
So I'm losing money.
Because you still have to have the manpower, even though you don't have the trash.
And you have to pay for the bins. So I'm like the amount of money it took to start the business was significant, because you're just hemorrhaging cash on the phase-in period of all these communities, because I got to pay people to service all 100% of it.
Yes.
So once we got to phase 12, but what I did is I put them in 60-month agreements back in the time where I could get away with it. There wasn't competition.
Yeah.
So I was locking in, thousands and thousands and thousands of units for 5 years.
Right.
And then you go in. So then, but that sounds easy, but it wasn't easy. But that's how the model works. So now.
But John, wasn't it also a revenue source or a profit source for the building? They would charge the renter, correct?
So I would charge, we'll call it, when I exited, I was like $11.50 a unit. Okay. But my apartment community was charging $25.30 for valet trash. So they were making $200,000, $300,000 and no paying overhead.
Yes.
There was no way they were going to say no to that, because I'd say, hey, you're going to tell me that your owners don't like money. So that's what you're saying to me. Your owners don't like money. So if I called your owner and I asked them, do they like money? They're going to tell me, no, they don't like money.
Oh, they're all in business for money. Of course they like money.
It was like, okay. So then we just started reeling in like portfolios, like to all the major developers and the Class A developers in the Southeast. That's where we're kind of saturated in, like where we really know that market. So it got to that point. But I will say this though, we almost failed, right? So let me tell you about failure. So we got funded and I'm burning through cash. And it took me 6 months to get my first deal. And because they weren't familiar with the service, were they nice enough communities? And it was not ubiquitous. So it was just too new for people to understand. And also, there was a lot of pushback because you had to have a great service. But there was a time where there was like no money in the bank. I had no contracts and I had phase two of a capital call, but it had to fit certain metrics. So now you know how business structures kind of work. You can't just ask for money. But we had no contracts and I had messed up one. I think I drank too much in like Tony Robbins to apartment industry and to just was too over. I should have laid a little more low. Just so many things that you can do differently. So I got that feedback and kind of lost our first deal. And I'm trying to do everything. And I remember our office was on Middle Street, just down the road on Sullivan's Island. And I used to live on Jasper and I used to walk or ride my bike to work. So I lived on this island. I never left it. And you can't do that when you're growing a business. But I was picking up cigarette butts on the way into work, into my office. I was like, Lord, whatever you got to do to make this happen, we got to make this happen because I'm out of capital. And at this point, I'm losing people's money. And that was a big problem for me. So I was losing people's money that I love and I trust. I'm not into that. So I remember that day because I'm picking up all these stinking cigarette butts on my way into work. And I have this whole handful of cigarette butts and I get it. I literally get to my office. It's next to Adam and Ryan, who are these absolutely profound businessmen, like exceptional. I'm in the office, like smoke cigarette hands, like this. And I get an email like that. I just got 720 units. Boom. Got 3 deals in Colombia. And then it was like game over, history set match after that. Like that day.
Because the hardest one's the hardest one to get, right? Like number one, because once somebody who wants to be the first, which is an interesting story because it's not like you had, and I know you had success in your family dynamic with your grandparents and stuff like that, but you had never had a level of success of being an entrepreneur and pitching a concept and an idea. And then once you did, you won that deal with these partners, but now you had no product to generate revenue. And then no one wants to be the first one with a new idea, right? It's like going, well, I've never heard of that idea. Why would I want to be the first one to do it? So what happens then after you land the first unit or the first 2 or 3 units? Then how much better was your reputation? And then how much better or easier was it to then make those sales after that?
Oh, it was everything. It was everything, actually. And I'll tell you, you got to love what you do. I think that was so important. And I finally had this idea in my head that you saw on the 6th, the June of 2011. And now when this is all happening, this would have been middle of 13. So now I've got my capital and I'm paying myself, I think the same salary, my starting salary at Macy's. So I had these, in order for me to make more money, I had to hit revenue. They were so smart. These guys, I have great mentors. Bernie, you're one of them. And I love you, man. And so once I had that, then I was all in. So anybody interviewing, this is actually a good story. And I use this to this day for all of the people that I hire, is I line them up. And I mean, I was so serious because I was all in. At this point, I was like, we're really doing it. And I have a real business here. These were all 60-month agreements and 3 communities in Colombia. So I actually bought a place in Colombia or rented a place in Colombia just so it would go incredibly well. So we had an office up there too. And I'd line them up. And just from the start, I was like, if you're not in the top 50 percentile, if you don't think you're in the 50 percentile, I pay you $50 to leave right now. Pay you $50 to leave. They all kind of look at each other, like, what is this? We're just picking up trash, right? I'm like, yeah, but you're not just doing it. You're doing it on my team. We're going to do things a little differently. Sure enough, I've had people leave, saving me all that. They leave quickly. Yeah, right. They're not going to pick up trash in the rain, the snow. And by the way, I think I'm definitely the guy that's picked up the most trash you'll ever interview, probably. But so we had all these three communities, and I could see who was good or not, and then I'd rotate them in, and all it was is just a job rotation in, and whoever got complaints or missed units, you'd coach them up or I coached them out, and no red flags. So, you don't answer your phone. Also, I did check-ins, even though that they know that they had to be there at 8 p.m. every single night. If they didn't come to me at first to check in 2 hours before your shift, even though they know it was a go, then I'd find somebody else and I'd fire them.
So this crew worked at 8 p.m. to what time? That were
Like 11.
11.
We could only start because trash placement was from 6 to 8 p.m. And then we'd start promptly at 8 until 11. And so these guys and girls would go and they do the round with these little hawkers and like these bins. Here's one of my bins right here. Like, I know your viewers know it, but yeah, there they are, and they know it because they're in there. They're gonna be like that guy. I wasn't the whenever I told people what I do, they were always like, "You're that guy." I was like, "Yeah." Well,
so you operated this company. What I love what you said just a minute ago, which is really awesome. I love it. And you said, I probably picked up more trash than anybody else because you have to lead by example. It's really funny, right? I train real estate agents and, I've sold, probably 1,650, 1,700 listing homes myself personally. So I've outsold, anybody in my entire company here by a lot, but you have to be able to lead by example because you can't ever be told how it is out there. You got to know how it is out there, right? Because you'll buy into too many stories. So how long did you operate the business? Then you sold it. So let's talk about how many years you built the company before you sold it.
So it would have been really good and going in 13. So 12, that meeting with Adam, and then we 4 months later funded. We're going. So 13, 1, 1, 13, and then what really kind of changed was COVID. I was getting to a scale where we were, over 30,000 units, which is quite a lot. And I was getting approached by many companies to sell. People wanted this. This was a good cash flow business, but it wasn't always like that. There were times where I was like, I had especially when the leaner times, and we didn't have the money, or at least they said they didn't. So I had to pull out credit and all kinds of things to be creative, to keep the business going. So I was all in. So I would do that. And I'd have $30,000 going out every 2 weeks from payroll. And I'd only have $800 in the checking account. I mean, just because I was waiting for these things to phase in, and then I'd have to buy more bins. So there was CapEx after CapEx with low, stabilized cash flow. And then when it got to be 2020, we were the only ones working. And that was, I just remember feeling so mad because I'd be flying, and I traveled a lot, Bernie, and I would be on the only one on the Air 747. I'm the only one on there. And then you get the complaints saying, oh, you didn't get this unit or that unit. And I had my own app. We were, we were very sophisticated and we were good at what we did. But I think I got a little bit upset with people fielding complaints with people that are simply working from home. These managers, everyone was working from home, not doing anything. And here I am, we're doing the most. We're the only ones allowed to work.
Yeah.
And I mean, seriously,
yeah,
you
because you
get
had trash
pulled over.
pickup, so you were allowed
They'd
to
be
work.
like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm with the trash company. They'd be like, oh, go ahead. I'm like, okay. So, but at that point, I said, what do the numbers really look like? And we had approached the 800-pound gorilla, Valet Living, and we had built up a relationship with them. Like I could tell that they were kind of schmoozing me, and I could tell, oh man, I think these guys are ready to pay a pretty big check here. And I went out and took one of their top executives on a boat. I think we went fishing on Shem Creek, and he just was like, what's it going to take, John? I was like, put a big number down. What do you got? And I think it went back a couple bits, and I partnered with my team. Let me tell you something too. So my right hand Cindy Schwartz and my left hand, Doug Borkowski, they still work with me and for me on my new companies, and they're thriving. So I took my best people with me that didn't want to go with the acquirer, which I made sure that all the acquirers got they got way better opportunities and more money, and they delivered for me. So it was a beautiful thing because everybody won. And, you know, I had a debt-free business that had a bunch of cash on hand, and we sold it for, you know,
Lots of money.
Close to $8 million.
Yeah. So here's you have this idea, you sell it for $8 million. Now you become a multimillionaire. Now you try to figure out, well, now what, because you're young, obviously still at this point.
Yeah.
What do you do with your life? Well, a true entrepreneur obviously that sees that money and says, okay, that's fine, but I'm an entrepreneur. The money is not why I do it, right? And I think only entrepreneurs can understand what that means. We'll take the money. We're building companies, but the money's not why we do it, and that's going to be confusing for a ton of people. But not that we don't take the money, not that we don't appreciate the money, and not that it doesn't create value for us. But entrepreneurs are true entrepreneurs. You don't have to go back to work. You can probably live the rest of your life with what you had already earned on the sale of your company. But you may not be living the way you want to live for the rest of your life. I mean, you're a young guy, so you have your whole life ahead of you. You start back in the real estate business, which is where you started working with me, and now you're in the healthcare, correct?
Yeah, yeah.
So tell us a little bit about the healthcare business.
So
that you started and created and are building.
Yeah, we're building it right now. It's great, guys. I'm super excited about this one. And by the way, I think that's a good point. When I made that exit, and you get, you look at a nice check. It's life changing. There's no doubt about it. I never thought that I would feel that way, and honestly, I had a little bit of crisis, not knowing what to do next. I think it was like, I remember just like playing golf with my friends' parents, which I love my friends, and like I'm so thankful for everybody. Like, I'm so glad to be home. I love Charleston. I love this place. And I love my friends and I love my family. But it's never enough. And you have to understand, then once you keep climbing this like economic ladder, I guess, it's never enough. So you have to make sure that you're deploying that and living in a way that is healthy and that keeps you relevant. And so I always had this still desire to stay relevant and in the game. And I think I remember one of my friends like was a little bit unhappy with me because I was just chilling playing golf with like their dads all day. And like they were like working hard, raising young kids, and they were like, you're I was missing my, like, they were like, why don't you go hang out with my dad? Like that's weird. So like I didn't like that. So I didn't like that at all. So
That's pretty funny.
And so, but I was smart enough to deploy probably right off the bat, like at least half right into my partners and I's multifamily deals. We're like the vanguard for development in Class A multifamily across the Southeast. So I got it out of my hands, so I didn't spend it on stupid shit like a sailboat and things that just don't make money.
Yeah.
But I still had all the things. I still love all the things, but I have all the things. And then I was able to reinvest into companies that I believed in along the way. But real estate was my plan B, right? So they paid me like a year's salary. So I was paid to do nothing from my acquisition company. So I did nothing for like a year, and that really irritated my friends.
Is it like a non-compete kind of a deal that you had?
Yeah. So, but they paid me. So I was like getting a check, like my salary, and I wasn't expected to do anything.
Yeah.
So, life was really good then. And I just did nothing actually. And actually, I think I was probably drinking too much. I was probably partying too much. And I didn't like all that. I was like, and then I was becoming disconnected from some of my friends, some of the people that I love, not necessarily, not because I did anything bad, just because I wasn't doing much.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had to get back into the game, and me personally. And so when I was
you're so entrepreneurial, and that's the thing I think people who are watching this, It's just gonna it sound as weird as it sounds, and it's gonna sound weird to anybody listening to it, and not we talk about the money and the success or whatever, but it just changes the dynamic when you have a level of success that the money is not your factor anymore. So you don't go to work every day because you need to pay your rent. You go to work every day because you enjoy the work that you do. And what's weird, and I don't know why it's this way, but when you go to work and you enjoy the work that you do, the money multiplies to such a point because you're not attached to the money. It's weird how things that you're not totally attached to then just start showing up in abundance. And I would just say that maybe possibly for you, because you had this business, you fought hard, you didn't make money, you took a risk, then you had money. You had millions of dollars worth of money, and then you look at it and go, okay, well, I don't have to go start a care facility. I can probably go do anything I want to do right now, but yet you get up every day and you go to work, right?
Yeah.
It's a weird relationship, because I'm in that same place where I'm more empowered to work now than I have probably my whole life, but I don't really need to work now, but it's fun to work and create something, totally different.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
is that fair? Fair
I
statement?
think it is. And also, I get a real kick out of creating jobs, right? So at the time I sold Tide, I had 200 employees. And those employees paid their salaries, their education, their student debt, their kids' daycare, their mortgage payments. So now with Home Haven Care, which is my home health care company, get this, you're going to love this. We're going to be the first ones that are implementing robotic care. So we're a hybrid care company. So we're going to have Optimus. We're obviously partnering with Tesla.
Yes.
And you're going to have your little robot, but most importantly, you're going to have a hybrid care system more affordable coming from Home Haven.
Yes.
And you're going to have this hybrid care program that allows you to have much better service at a fraction of the cost. And this is all happening very real time.
What's interesting, you just said that, is I'm really and watching and researching and watching a lot of YouTube videos on Tesla's robot. They're closing down some factories, car factories, to make robots.
Yeah, make
But
way.
yeah, but they talked about in these videos that I've been watching how these robots are going to take over the healthcare business.
Yeah.
And so that's really cool that you mentioned that, because I actually just heard that the other day on TV, that is really where a lot of this desire in manufacturing these robots are going to really help in that particular area, and save people like businesses like yours a ton of money, and be able to service a lot of people, which is really great.
Yeah. And so here's like the win-win. So Bernie, how I thought about it is I looked at my competition and I was like, these guys are like no zest. We're talking like, I went to all the conventions. I was like, these people are dying to leave. So I knew that we could win business. I knew that this would be a good model for me. And I also know where the money is. It's, people that are going to be, retiring, or, I guess baby boomers.
Mm-hmm.
So I just, all the everything. And then again, I feel lined up, no
Mm-hmm.
sleep, like naturally, like I'm so excited about this. And you just do it.
Do you have, because you've been there, maybe this is a good question for people here, because you've been there and had the trials and tribulations of starting a business, now that you start a business, do you have a clearer thought than you had before? Like, what changed inside of you that is giving you a clearer thought that maybe you didn't have when you started the first business?
Oh, I think so. Yeah. I know, and I'm invested in many other companies that aren't in my control, and um, which is fine. But I would always want to bet on me now, because if I know that I'm in control, then it's always on me. But every time, and I've solved a lot of problems for other different kinds of companies. I've got all kinds of different purviews I get to see. And every time it's operations, it's like these things are totally controllable. And I don't know if you remember this, you were the one that plugged me into like a Zillow lead, right? So then I started doing my homework on these leads. How do I get business for home health care? And you basically can you can buy them and acquire them, but you have to convert them if you're
Yeah.
semi decent at them. But
Yeah.
my conversion rate is over 75% for my appointments. I'm like, it's more closer to 80.
Yeah.
So if I get in front of you, I'm more than likely going to win the business. So, but it's scalable,
Yes.
but they die. So like with real estate company, sure, I didn't I didn't like busting my hump like until now. I was waiting on that idea, and I was cruising and doing from like 2001 to like last year anywhere from 15 to 21 deals a year. Average sales price was like 630, 640, and like I get 100% of my commission. So like I'm didn't need the money, but at the same time I'm like stacking up cash. Like what do I do this for? And a
Well, I
couple,
love it. You would even send me pictures of your
yeah,
checks.
I'm
I
like
think you
making,
even had like some checks that were like 18,000 or twenty
yeah,
thousand
but I
dollars. I'm
keep
like,
like
look at
I'd
you
be
go,
making,
man. It's
it's
amazing.
like you'll make 90 grand in a month. It's like this
Yeah.
is the best business in the world.
Yeah.
And it is, but I can't scale. And for me and my goals, I want 30 million. I've decided this a long time ago. I don't know why. 30 just sounds great. I
What?
don't know how I'm going to get there.
Hey,
I
you know
don't
what? Want to
care.
hear? You want to hear something funny? Sometimes you lose sight of your goals, and so we just celebrated a few months ago. Let's call it 3 or 4 months ago. We had closed over $2 billion in the 20 years in business, and we had like a cake and some balloons, and it said 2 billion sold. And one day I said, like a couple days after that, I said, why am I not selling 1 billion a year? So then I went in and I started researching what I would have to have based on my current volume of about 300 million, what it would take for me to do 1 billion in the next 36 months. So I have 3 years basically to do it. Well, you have to over 3 times your business to get there. Wait a minute. It took me 20 years
Yeah.
to get to 2 billion, or it took me 20 years to get to 300 million is even a better one. So how do you 3 times or over 3 times your business? Number one, you write it down. Number two, you visualize it. Number three, you research it. And then you look at this very crazy, hairy, audacious goal and you say, why not me? And it's just a matter of putting in the right mindset, the right people, right? I think you would agree with that. You can't do anything alone. You got to have really good, smart people in your corner. But more importantly than all of that, and this is for all the listeners, is you have to be able to invest your money, time, and energy into great quality people, because there's a lot of smart people out there and they can take you to $1 billion a year. But if you could take it to 1 billion, meaning me, Bernie, not you, John, if I could take it to 1 billion, I would have probably already done that. So what I'm doing is saying, who do I bring in that helps serve me and the mission I have to help, in this case, it'd be about 2,000 house sales per year versus, 650 or 700 that I'm doing right now. So you're going, well, gosh, that is such an amazing task to try to get to that number. And all it is a decision, and it's nothing more than a decision. And then it's a little bit of what we call risk, right? Because you have to put something out there. John, I want to say this to you. First of all, A, thank you for your time. But number two, before we leave, share with the people that are listening what you have found your strength in mentally and what you can help people try to overcome some of the fears they're dealing with about expanding and about being an entrepreneur.
Yeah, guys, I would just say this is that something that really helps me if I'm feeling anxious is stop taking yourself too seriously. Gosh, just say it out loud. Say it to yourself. I mean, there'll be so times if you're in front of, a billionaire or someone that you're trying to impress, stop taking yourself so seriously and let God handle that. There's got to be something that you can let that go. I would say that's really important. Obviously, self-improvement is an everyday thing. You think you're going to have massive self gains, or you want all these gains, but you're only putting in 5 minutes a day for that gain, you're not going to get there. You want massive action, or you set these goals, I would suggest making them believable first, and then scale the goals to make it so you have to believe in it. So you have to believe, is it possible that I could do, 20 deals a year? And you'd be like, yes, of course. And you look around, well, that person did it. Jesus. So that, and then also surrounding yourself with people that love themselves, love their family, and are good human beings. That's really important. And
Meaning like the circle of influence of people they hang out with.
you are exactly who you hang out with. So if you think you're going to be something outstanding that you're not hanging out with at all, or these people aren't calling you, like if you go through my phone, you're going to say, Jesus Christ, that's a nice list of people to know. Yes, I worked hard for that. But at the end of the day, you really want to make sure that you're in control of your mindset, and you also want to move. I would encourage you to keep your body right, keep your mind right, making sure that you're loving yourself in the way that you're staying healthy and fit, and that comes mentally, spiritually, and physically.
Yeah. Dude, that's so good, man. That's so good. And we talk so much, John, to people about the influence of the people around them. I just did a podcast the other day all about, you are who you hang out with, and your friends actually create your ceiling. And that if you're hanging out with low producing minded people, no goals, low incomes, zero desire, that's exactly what you're going to get out of your life. And if you hang out with a bunch of people who say you can do it, they raise your level of belief in yourself, that ceiling just keeps growing to an infinity number, right? Because, you and I might be talking about 30 million, John, but I would say, well, why isn't that 300 million, right? And so,
yeah, but here's the thing: we'll get there, and we'll say, maybe it is 300.
maybe
But that's okay.
Yeah, no,
That's okay.
Can I tell you something pretty funny? Not too long ago, but long ago enough. Let's call it 10 years. I was talking to my mentor. I'm sorry, not my mentor, but one of my coaches, and they asked me how much I wanted to have in retirement. And so I said, well, if I had this number in retirement, I would never really. That's all I would need. And I'll never forget, he looked at me, we were talking on the phone, but he looked at me and he goes, I'm very confused on why that number is so small. And I said, well, that number seems large to me. He says, until you get there and you'll realize how small of a thinker you really are. And I actually got there and I went, you know what? He actually gave me a suggestion. He goes, why isn't it this number? And I'm like, and that scared the heck out of me, John. I'm going to be honest with you. And when he said it, I'm like, oh my gosh. I mean, I couldn't even imagine mentally of being there. Like, it doesn't even, to me, that's so beyond where my mindset was at that particular time. And not only did I surpass the goal of what I had set as my goal, I then surpassed the goal of what he had set for me. And then I look at it and go, well, why can't I double that? Why can't I 3 times that? And so I do believe exactly what you're saying, and that is, we got to get to, in your case, we'll use 30 million. We got to get to 30 million, but when you get to 30 million, you're going to go, why not 50?
Yeah.
Right? Why not 50? So it's fun, man. And I got to tell you, you are such a treat to listen to. And for all the years that I've known you and just hearing your inspiring attitude towards almost everything you do, you're one of the most positive people on how you outlook and like you look at life. It's everything is rose colored glasses from my perspective on how you talk. And there's a lot to that. And I know that's not really what always goes on inside of you, but I know that that's always what comes out of you, is that no matter what situation you're in, it's beautiful. It's very beautiful, right? You're like, oh, that's beautiful. How many times have you said the word beautiful? Oh, that's beautiful, right? I mean, that's part of your vocabulary. And buddy, don't let anybody discount the enthusiasm and excitement that you have for life, because that's why you're sitting where you're sitting and having these great experiences and influencing these great people to work with you. I think 30 million is way too small for you, my friend.
Appreciate it.
But we'll get a chance to watch that journey as we continue. So thank you for being my friend. Thank you for proving that my opinion isn't right and I should listen to other dreams. And just thank you for just being an awesome human being, man, and sharing all this with all of our great people that watch these podcasts.
You're welcome. I love you. I love you so much, buddy.
Thanks, brother. Right back at you, my friend. So thank you so much. And if anybody wants to contact you, what's the best way somebody can reach out if they just need to get some inspiration?
Honestly, you could just reach out at jboyd at homehavencare.com. Or you could go to the website. You can find me on LinkedIn. I'm somewhat in there. I don't really use the other social platforms, but I'd love to help wherever I can. And I'm just super thankful to be here and share time with you. And I want you all to be the best versions of yourselves.
Dude, that's so great. Well, thank you so much. Thank you to everybody for tuning in on this Success is Not Convenient podcast. This is going to be a tough one, Jon, for me to try to improve on, because this was such an awesome message. But all of my listeners and all my watchers, thank you so much. I hope everybody has a great day. And any suggestions you have, if you guys would like to learn more about Jon, we can have him back on in the future. But I hope everybody has a blessed day. See y'all later.